In this video, we're going to cover how to start creating a walk cycle. And this is going to be mostly focused on for games because the character is going to walk in place. But to animate it, we're actually going to have them walking forward, and then once we're done, we'll put them back so they're doing the loop in place. And the reason you don't move them forward for video games is because that's what the player is controlling. They're using the joystick to control the character walking forward or whatever direction, and you're just playing this animation loop over the top. Now, not that you couldn't use this for film or anything like that. You wouldn't move it back, and you'd probably do some more on top of that, so it doesn't look like such a canned video game run. But we'll focus on games, but this is totally applicable to film as well. So before I start, I'm going to have a script installed, and I've actually already got it installed on my computer. You'll want to dump this script into your Documents folder, or your Maya scripts folder, which is in Documents, Maya, Scripts. And there's usually two. There's usually one for just Maya or one per specific program. But the general scripts folder should work. Just dump it in here. It's a Python animation import export .py for Python. And where you get that is you go to creativecrash.com and do a search for PAIE. PAIE stands for Python Animation Import Export. Or you can start digging through, Maya selections, scripts, plugins, animation. But if you just do a search here at the homepage of Creative Crash, this should come up if you just search for PAIE. You'll download this and you'll drop that script in that folder. So when you start up Maya, it won't do anything by default. You still have to run it. So let me show you how to trigger it. And I think there's some help documentation that comes with it. But here's how I get it to come up whenever I forget what that stuff says. So I'm going to first off, there's two tabs in here. There's Mel and there's Python. We want to be on the Python tab. I'm going to go up to File, Load Script, and I'm going to go find my Maya folder again. Find that script. Grab that Python script, and this loads that whole script in here. Now, I don't think I need to hit enter because I already started up the program with this, but there is a piece that I need, and I think it's right here, the PAIE GUI. GUI stands for General User Interface. And I think I just need this part right here, and that'll get the menu up. So let's test that theory. So I'm just copying and pasting over everything that's in there. Nope, it's not defined yet, so I actually need to go in and load that whole script. So let's do that again. I'm going to select this all, and then I'm going to hit enter on my number pad, and this will execute this whole script. If you hit regular enter, this will all just disappear, so make sure you're using your number pad one. By highlighting it all, that'll make sure it doesn't disappear. If it isn't highlighted, it'll just all input here, and everything in here will clear out, and I don't want that just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Alright, so that script's been executed. And now I'm going to go back all the way down to the bottom and copy Python, or PAIE GUI with a little parentheses at the end. And there we go. So this menu comes up, and this is a great animation import and export tool for transferring animations from one rig to the other. Now it's specific to a rig, so essentially what it's doing is looking at the name of this controller. Here's all its attributes, here's what the numbers are, here's what the keyframes are. So it looks at each keyframe and says, okay, on this frame, here's what all the numbers are. On this frame, here's what all the numbers are, assigned to this control. If you remember us doing direct connections, it's always like left hand control dot finger spread this number. And it basically just lists all that stuff, saves it to a little sheet, and then can plug it all back in. The great thing about this is it works with namespaces. So if you might have the same character in here, but maybe you forgot to check on use specific string when importing in your reference, and or maybe you didn't even import a reference, you forgot that step. Python animation import export is great at discerning, like, oh hey, that part of the name's the namespace, just ignore that, and is really good for transferring animation. I think I've used it on every job that I've been on. So again, this is a great tool that's out there. Not one I wrote, but whoever did, really helpful. And so you'll notice up here it has import and export, so depending what you want to do. And so first you'll export stuff, and you can define where the stuff is saving to. Maybe a specific folder per character if you want. And what I'll do often when animating a character is save out various poses that come up a lot. Now, maybe the whole body poses don't come up a whole lot, but certain things like hands come up a lot, facial expressions, and I could either save out a pose for just that character or the whole animation. And so this is great for reusing stuff, so you don't have to keep doing stuff. Just hands are a pain in the butt to pose. I mean, look at all these things that we have to set to get a certain hand position. Save those poses out. So every time you make one, you just name it, hand pose. I don't know, something more specific than hand pose. But then I just click export. We'll go ahead and run through this once. So there it is right there. And then I can go back and import it in, and you can see it doesn't see a namespace. If it did have a namespace, it'd be listed here. If you have a scene where you've referenced something, but then also have things selected that aren't referenced, there'll be two selections here, and you'll have to pick one and the other, like none, or if it's referenced in with like Jane Doe, you'll have to pick Jane Doe before it could tell how to deal with the animation. But really, really great and easy to use. So you can do a pose or whole clip. When you export animation, it'll export out whatever's on your exposed timeline. So if you have animation going out to here, but you only have this much of it showing, it's only going to export out this much that's exposed. But I may use this later in this animation. We'll see. But it's another case might work well. Well, we'll see. I don't know if it'll go from left hand to right hand. It's not great at mirroring stuff, but saving poses, it'll save you a lot of time in that respect. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to minimize this for now. But again, I may not use this in this case, but I always have it, and I love this thing because it is great for not only salvaging animation when I screw up something and then you rebuild a rig and don't want to lose my animation. I could copy it out in this, delete this rig out, bring in the new rig, and this can put animation on. But again, great for saving poses. So if I make different facial shapes or different hand poses, save at that pose, reuse it again and again. So okay, so we're going to do a walk, and walking and doing, not walking, but animation in general is a lot like if you watch the modeling video, some of those similar steps. So really you want to kind of block everything out, at least in extremes. The timing doesn't have to be right yet. This file has way too many keyframes on it, and I've never gone and changed that and saved it in the file. So setting this to like 200 frames, something a little bit more reasonable. And I'm not going to be too worried about the timing just yet. I'm just going to kind of set everything on each individual pose on one keyframe, and then I'll tweak out the timing. But because I'm doing a walk, I'm going to start with, so I'm just going to animate in the 5s right now, because that's nice, easy to work with. I just line everything up in that black key. And I'm going to set a keyframe here, and let's say we'll set one. Let's see. I'm going to turn my grid on, because this will help me gauge how far they need to walk. So if it shows me a grid, oh, there's a grid there, it's just too small, maybe? Yeah, there's a grid there. Alright, I'm going to change my units. Oh, here's the other thing to always do before starting an animation. Actually, let me take a step back. I made another video telling you guys about referencing. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to save off a copy of this rig. Okay, save that. And I'm going to make a new scene, and then I'm going to reference in this rig. So again, if anything changes, I could always edit it. Edit the rig and my animation saved. So scrolling down here, going to new namespace string, and I'll just call it Jane Doe because that's specific to the character. Click reference, and find that animation rig that I just saved out. Alright, so we've got that in. You can see it has a namespace now. And again, if I was working with this guy and had exported out animation before, it'll be able to put it on here no problem, even though the name's different. So one of the great things about it. I need to go make sure everything is set for my animation before I start it. The worst thing you can do is start animating something and realize oh god, this whole project's in 30 frames a second. I just started, animating for the last 2 hours in 24. This is at a different frame rate. So I'm going to set this to 30 frames a second, and we'll set this to feet. Okay. So the scale, isn't such a big deal here. It might matter when you're exporting if you're going to a game engine on what scale your character comes in at. But for animating, it doesn't. It could change scale, no problem. It's just the numbers will change. What's going to matter is make sure everything is at the same scale when you made it. So when we modeled this character and rigged them up, that she's the same size as all our sets and all that stuff. So if I didn't plan that out before, that could end up real bad. Okay, so my time frame set. Oh, and you'll notice my switch from 24 to 30 can't quite split that quite evenly, so I need to make sure my timeline is okay, there we go. So I'm animating on ones. So we're starting in frame 1, and I'm going to go ahead and set a hold keyframe on just the master control at the origin. Oops. Oh, it's just telling me I have non-keyable attributes. So when I hit the scale, that's what's going on. So nothing to worry about there. I was looking at that yellow warning down there. Okay, so my observation is when people walk is that they tend to take about a footstep in front of them. So I'm going to try to, her foot's roughly, 2 units. So let's start with moving her 2 units forward. Or I guess that's technically 3 because she's standing in the center. Oh, oops, I need a bigger timeline so I can kind of see what's going on here. Okay. So setting. Why am I not seeing any keyframes down here? That's weird. Things are keyframed up here. Huh, strange. Usually there's a little red tick there. Maybe it's because I'm recording video right now? I don't know. Weird. Well, I guess that's what happens whenever you do a demo. Okay, so that's keyframed. I'm gonna slide up here and move her forward. We said 3 units. And I'm gonna hit set again. And I'm just making sure that's actually, it's not setting. Why is that not setting? It's telling me it has no keyable attribute, so. Oh, I may have done something stupid here. Yep, so I keyed it back in the original, so now I can't overwrite that because it's referenced in. It's saying no, it already has a key on it. So I'm going to save that and re-reference it in. So I don't have to create the namespace again. It's already there. It has whatever I last used. And okay, so brought it in. Okay, well that's good to know in case you run into that you'll know that's why. And change this back to feet. Make sure we're on 30 frames a second. Save, fix my timeline again. Okay, try this again. Set a keyframe. Oh. Make sure I'm on 1. Okay, go to 10. Oh, yeah, 10. And move her forward 2 units, which brings her to. Wait, okay, sorry. Put her back at. Okay, so right there. Full footstep ahead would be. Yeah, just 2. Sorry, I was confusing myself, but nothing you can fix later. And we'll see. I'll probably still have to adjust this as I go on, as I figure out what a natural gait is for her. So that's her walking 1 step for right now. And let's go ahead and start looking at our graph editor, because this is how we're going to start to edit our animation so that it's going the speed that we want. So first thing you'll see is right here under Translate Z, because that's the only thing we've animated so far. I'm going to hit F to focus in here. And we have this S curve going here, and this bottom timeline is, or the bottom is timeline. It's frame 1 to frame 10. So as we travel across time, and here's the distance it's traveled in Z. So as Z goes up to 2 units, it slowly starts going there. So it's over one frame, it's barely moved at all, and then over a second frame, it's moving even more than it did the second frame, and then it's moving at a constant pace, and then now it's slowing down. We don't want that. We want a constant pace in this case. So I want to straighten this line out so that it's a nice even stride. There may be times where we want this, but not in this case. So I'm just going to grab both those keyframes, and if I click this guy here, that turns them into straight lines. So they just point straight to each other. And I feel like they're kind of like Bezier curves. So I'm middle mouse dragging on. Why does that stop? Weird. Just doesn't want to go any farther than that. Strange. Anyway, if you middle mouse those, you could drag and edit those curves, but this one is acting really weird. So I'm just gonna make that straight by clicking this, and these are kind of like set by default, quick ways to set the tangents different ways. So that's not one we want. But anyway, in this case we want a straight line, just so that it's a nice constant pace. And I'm going to go ahead and start setting out the extreme poses for this. So one end of the stride to another. So and pose the arms, and I've put this on FK. That's just kind of my preference for doing a walk cycle, but you can use IK. It doesn't really matter. It'll be slightly different on what gets posed. Actually, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show none, show only NURBS curves. And by the way, I hid everything else in my rig. So my do not touch stuff with all the rigging stuff, that skeleton, all that stuff I don't want to grab is hidden. And I'm just going to marquee select everything here and set a hold keyframe. Not that all the stuff needs to be held in this position, but I have auto key on, and for auto key to work, you need to have at least one keyframe on something before it starts auto keying. So that's what I'm doing there. And just start posing this out. And I'm not going to do a particularly stylized walk for here. I'm just going to try to make it kind of quick. But spend a lot of time observing how people walk, because there's so many different styles of walking. I remember when I was with one group, we used to kind of like to go to the food court at this mall, and I don't mean like the big mall. I mean like little strip mall where the problem with the big mall is old people don't shop there, and the strip mall with the food court, everybody kind of went there. Like I think they even had like a senior home nearby or disabled home or something. But it was the best place to go and people watch, and just watch other people walking and just seeing like, look at his gait and how he moves up and down. That's interesting. That's different. Never would have thought to animate something like that. So really spend some time observing things, because what you think is out there versus what is actually happening is often two completely different things. Always use a reference, and I always say that to everybody who I'm training to work with, because there's so much stuff you miss that you never even noticed. And we used to do this test with the modeling artist of we go get a figure, like I had a bunch of Spawn figures or something like that I liked back in the day, and we'd pull one out, like the big like foot tall figures, and say, okay, draw this, and give them 30 minutes to draw it, and they'd show us their drawing. Okay, cool. Okay, that's pretty good. And then we'd take it away and we'd hide it. We'd say, now draw it. And this is their second time, so they've already had a good look at it. And their second drawing was always horrible. It was not very good. And the reason is because we're bad at remembering how things actually look. So always use a reference. Animation, you could get, there's plenty of movies out there for reference. There's plenty of places to go people watch. Record video of you of your friends, but there's a lot of options. So Let's see, I'm setting this stuff, and I think I just remember something. Yeah, I got stretch on this rig. I'm going to turn this off just so I'm not dealing with that right now. And again, I'm not doing a stylized walk, so I don't really care if things are stretching. Okay. So get some of that twist in there. I don't really have the hips going up or down. I'm trying to remember which is which. Hips go up this side. And then whatever's going on, the hips and chest kind of mirror each other. Okay. And then now for my favorite part, posing hands, because that looks ridiculous. And we're just going to try to make a little bit more relaxed hand, so maybe the fingers are closer together. Next finger tends to be a little bit more straight than everything else. And just, yeah, going through, whoops, not that one. Alright. Keeping on grabbing spread instead of stretch. Or keep grabbing stretch instead of spread. Okay, so I think that's alright. And, you know, I'm keeping it rough right now. I don't have to make this perfect, but the better I make this look for this shot, the better. And, you know, I'm going to see if, since all the attributes are the same, I can't just copy that keyframe onto this guy. There we go. I'll go ahead and change it up just a little bit here so we don't have exactly the same thing. Okay, so there's one frame. And so because this thing loops, we only have to get it to go from one spot to the next. And actually, you know, we need to bring it, let's see, at 2, so 20 would be 4. So we need to go a total of 2 steps forward, which means it gets back to the same step it was originally. So we have to move it one step and then 2 steps. And I'm going to go check my graph editor again here and just make sure that line stayed straight. Nope, not quite. It keeps time constant. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and, you know, I'm just going to lock off polygons so I can't grab into that stuff anyway. I could also lock my layers, and that would be another way to do this. Let's do that instead. So, and I'm going to go at 20 and keyframe everything also. So this frame and this frame are in the same pose, she's just forward more. And now I'll go ahead and start to pose the opposite stride. And go ahead and put that foot back down. let's see. Put this. Well, no. Let me redo that. I'll explain what I'm doing in a second here. Okay. So I'm making sure her feet are relative to where she was before. So, this point's kind of under her center. This grid point's kind of in the center of the back foot, center of the front foot. So I need to have something roughly equivalent here. So this foot needs to go farther back because that grid line isn't quite in the center yet. And I need to rotate that foot up. By the way, little tip, wearing shoes makes us walk completely differently than when we're barefoot. I had a martial art teacher that used to say that humans are the only creatures that need to be taught to learn to walk naturally, and shoes have totally screwed up how we walk. People have knee problems from running because we land heel first instead of ball first, and your foot's a good shock absorber, but not when you have it locked out and all that shock goes up your leg and up through your spine. Try running, especially on a hard surface, barefoot. You'll stop running heel real quick because of how much it hurts, and you'll start running on the ball of your foot, kind of like how every other animal on the planet runs, with their heel up in the air, and it makes your foot much springier and lighter. But just a little tip: so if you have a barefoot character, this is not a natural walk, especially a character that let's say they're barefoot all the time because that's their character. They wouldn't walk like this because that really hurts over a long time, and you'd start to notice real quick, and you'd change the way you walk. So little things about walk cycles. But she is wearing shoes, and that's how most people walk, at least Americans. And so she's sliding a little bit. I'm not too worried about that at this point. I am just getting these poses. So if I hit my, so on my keyboard, kind of to the left of my other shift key, right by the M key, there's like a arrow forward, arrow back, and the greater lesser symbol right over the comma and period. If I hit those keys, I can jump between my extremes and kind of see what's going on. But I haven't really set up a ton yet, so I need to keep setting everything here. Also, a little tip on stylizing this. Tighter walk gait tends to look more feminine, so the more each foot walks in front of each other, more feminine. The closer they are to shoulder width apart as they walk, more masculine. So little things to think about. Also, if I start to shift the hips more to the side, that'll start to make it look a little bit more feminine. But I'm still just blocking this out, and I'll keep adding as I go, as I'm kind of chipping away at this. And actually, I wonder, can I just copy this frame? This might be too much to do it to multiple controls at the same time. Yeah, I can. Sweet. Alright, so I'm just going to start copying frames from my existing rig here. And I don't like this too much. This is, it creates, it's kind of like twinning where two sides are doing the same thing and it's apparent, but it may not work on this side. But it's good for blocking it out, and then I can go shift it so it's not exactly the same. Huh. This might want only one controller at a time. Sometimes when you grab multiple controllers, yeah, it doesn't put the right animation back on the right controller. So this is why we mirrored behavior when we mirrored our skeleton, if you've been following the whole way through, is to be able to do stuff like this. If we'd done actual orientation, this would not work. Awesome. Okay, so it works for the arms and the legs, not so much for the rest of the body. But let's start back at the beginning. All right, so not too bad. We want to get this a little bit cleaner. And the thing I want right now is I want the feet to stick. So I'm going to work on getting them to stay in place. And let's start by looking at what's going on in our graph editor again and seeing how they're traveling forward and if it's fairly consistent speed. So what I'm interested in is mostly just z, because all this stuff is math. It's all coordinates. It's not which way z is facing, but this direction in the world is z. So I want to look at that, and it's traveling up and down, but it's slowing down and speeding up to get there. So again, I'm going to angle these out to keep them moving at a constant speed forward. And you can see actually here I can filter out which piece of the animation I'm looking at. So I can zoom in and out just like I can in Maya, and I can hit F to focus on whatever's exposed. So I'm going to go to Translate Z, hit F here, and get this to flatten. See if that does a little bit better job of sticking the feet. Yeah, so that's not bad. So it's a little bit narrow. I don't like how little the feet are lifting. Let's pull it back just a little bit. Copy that keyframe, put it over here. So these need to line up pretty much exactly. So I need to keep making sure this last keyframe is the same as the first. Let's see how that does. I don't know if that's so much the issue. I think it's just the way the foot's moving forward, because that's not the natural part. So I'm going to go ahead and put those back. And yeah, I think the issue is we're not bending and lifting up and going forward. It's just sliding back forward like she's shuffling her feet or something. So, well, first let me see how fast this is. Because that might start to matter. So I'm going to go to my playback speed here first and change it to real time. I know I have a video card that will support this. If you don't, this may not work so great, but playing it back real time will at least let me see kind of the speed it's actually running at. Yeah, it's a little bit fast. So I'm going to spread it out a little bit here. And I'm trying to remember my math. I think it's closer to, like, if you're doing a walk, it's roughly like a second for 2 strides. It's kind of the average. I remember there's actually some study I read at some point that started to break that down. If there was, an average walk speed for everybody. But I think the math part that worked well was just saying 15 and 15. Okay, yeah, it starts to look a little bit more natural speed-wise. Okay. So the reason I want to do that first is I'm going to start to put some in-betweens in now. And I want my speed right, so I don't have to start adjusting all the in-betweens. I also want to make sure that, so if I want to, I could just grab all my keyframes and scale them like this, but they may not end up back in a whole number by doing that, which makes them hard to edit. You can only go in the graph editor and edit them at that point. If you set a new key, it'll be on the whole number. So just be aware of that. So I'm just shift selecting in here. And then these arrows are stretch, and these in the center are slide. So if I just want to reposition them as a whole, I use the center ones. Okay, so let's get her to start to lift her foot up rather than drag it forwards. Alright, that's starting to look better. I'm going to undo that because I don't think I had a hold keyframe on everything. So here's the deal: when you move stuff, an auto key takes care of it. It's only keying what you move. So if I only move Translate Z, that's the only thing it keys. So I'm going to go ahead and set a hold keyframe on everything. Just going to go through the whole thing here and just make sure everything's got a hold key on the extremes. On the extremes, that's really important. On the in-betweens, not so much. But I didn't like how that foot was kind of sliding. Okay, so let's get to, let's try around 5. Back again a little bit, rotate it down because I'm going to bend it and the foot roll won't work. But it's up. Push it back just a little bit more. And I'm going to work on that plant. So the foot needs to be there, ready to step before it lands. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and just set it down there at that point. That just seems a little bit high. She's reaching too much. Alright, so that's starting to look better. And right now I'm just focused on the legs. The hands are kind of doing their own thing, but I'm mostly just watching the legs for right now, and I'm going to try to clean these up as best I can. Okay, so same with the back leg. So this one I did 6 and 11. So let's try that and see how that works out. So I'm keeping these the same. So 15 plus be 5 more. We started in frame 1. Bring that out more. I think right here, bring this other foot up just a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to put these feet down at this point. So it's starting to look a little bit better, but it's starting to look kind of like horse cloppy to me, like just her speed. So I need to adjust that some. So I think it's too little time traveling through and too little time, or too much time picking up and setting down her foot. So I'm gonna change that a little bit here, and I'm gonna take my existing key, I'm gonna pull it back a keyframe. This is the other part that's bugging me right now. I'm going to have her lean forward a little bit more, because walking and running is just kind of like a series of controlled falls, and if you aren't leaning into it, it doesn't look right. Yeah, that's too much leaning. Okay, so the other thing she's kind of missing that is making this look weird is that natural bounce that kind of happens as you're doing that because she's lifting herself up, and at the widest she should be down, and then here she should be up just a little bit. Copy that keyframe and actually put it here as well. Pull her down some, so it's looking weird. Maybe I'm just really rusty at this and haven't done it for a while. Probably a little bit of both. Alright, so she's getting there, still really robotic, right? So it's just cleaning this up and trying to get the timing to look more natural. Now, what I should have here is take a little bit of my own medicine and have a reference to somebody walking that I could go pay attention to, but I don't. But if this was me doing it, I'd already be outside with a camera at this point, recording myself or somebody else walking, just to make sure I'm not too far off when I do this. But I don't have that, so I'm not prepared. So this is one of those scenarios of do what I say, not, or do what I say, not what I'm doing. So I'm going to bring my timeline down to 30 here. And actually, I'm going to bring it to 29, because if it loops from frame 1 to 30, it's playing the same frame over, so it'll stutter right there. So bring it down to 29, and we should get a loop going on here. Yeah, so lower body is, I look at the feet and I just see robot. So let's see if we can't fix that. Let's see if we can't keep the foot down longer. Maybe that's the problem. Let's undo my X rotations so the foot's still down so that the ball roll does its thing. And make sure I'm not going below the floor and Y. Also, here's something that I'll often do is I will just build a plane. Create polygon plane, and we'll just make this a lot bigger. And that way, if the foot does start to go through, I can see it. So I think we're okay. So that's not too bad. Pull this back just a little bit more. See how it slides forward just a little bit right there? I don't want that. So let's look at our graph editor, see what's going on with my Z. Yeah, I'm going to flatten these all back out again, see what happens. Same with the other foot. Whoop. And all the windows are open. Alright, so I'm just going to put another keyframe in there. It's right there. Let's pull this back just a little bit. And that's what I'm missing, is more of an up motion as that comes down. I need to extend that out a little bit more, so I'm putting put a hold keyframe and then zeroing out X. Let's see if that. I'm focused on this foot right now, not paying too much attention to the other foot. And let's make this easier to actually watch. Turn off my NURBS curves. Yep, so this leg's looking a little bit more natural to me. The other leg looks like it has a cast on or something. So I'm going to run with this for the moment and tweak the other side now. Right, so that foot stays planted, and I'm not going to rotate it yet. So I got a little bit of swimming happening there. You can see between 1 and 15. I'm going to go see if I can see what's going on in my graph editor here. Let's see, I'm going to use my little arrow keys again, the greater than, less than. Yeah, you see it's going forward just a little bit by frame 15, so I'm going to pull it back just some. That's better. Again, I don't want it sliding forward. And I'm going to delete that keyframe. Let's bring that up a little bit more, rotate it back. All right. Alright, I'm looking at the end here, and on 15 there, I have that foot up, so I need to have this foot up in roughly the same pose there. And then I'm going to swim in there. Oh, right, because I put the foot up now, so let's see. Did 2 frames after, then it's down on this foot, I believe. Yeah. 2 frames after, foot down. And now I gotta deal with that swimming. But I think that's probably happening in my graph editor. Let's take a look at that. Nope, not rotate, translate. Yep, let's keep that moving steady. Foot up so it's not heel down. Let's play this and see how it looks. A little bit too much up is what I'm seeing. feel like the foot's up too much still there. I'm going to delete this frame. There's a little bit too much rotation happening in one frame there. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. So I know the nice thing about animating this in nice broken up units is I could always redo this. So I know each step is 2 feet at a time. And I need to know this because at some point I'll need to tell my programmers the walk cycle, happens in 30 frames, and in 30 frames they travel 4 feet. So when they start programming it, they could try to match the speed to the walk cycle, so the characters in swimming. And a lot of times there's some fudging in games, but that's good to know because I'm going to delete this right now, so I can see them walking in place and just see it loop and see how I feel about the walk. So let's go ahead and have her walk. And I think I'm okay with those feet. I mean, well, I think I'm happier with her left foot than I am her right foot at the moment. I think I see what it is. I think I need more lift up. Yeah. So let's look at this in place and see. Watch her left foot. It's much more pointed down. I have it as she's stepping forward, and now her right foot not as down. So right here, I'm going to lift it up a little bit more. Oh, I need to turn this down to 29 because I see something that looks a little bit robotic, but that might be the frame doubling up and repeating. I'm going to call that good enough for now. And I'm going to go ahead and put her back to walking forward 4 units. So I'm going to 30 here. I don't need to do the in-between frame. I know how far she's walking. And let's just make sure that it's a straight line. It is not. Alright, and let's just make sure nothing's swimming there still. So you can see I've got that. Which foot is it? This foot's swimming a little bit, so again, I think it's my graph curves. Could be wrong here, but yep, no, they're all curvy. I'm still sliding. That might have been something I did early though to compensate for the sliding. So let's. That's better. Oops, no, not that one because I don't want to need the last frame and the first frame to be the same. But let's check that out. We still got a little bit of swimming. That's better. And so, I mean, again, this is me just kind of doing the first pass on it, and if that stuff bugs me, I can go back and clean it up later, but I want to get overall everything done. And so that's a good pass on the legs. And I kind of, I'll typically separate out the lower body from the upper body as I'm animating. So focus on just the legs, and then I'll focus on the arms and chest. And then lastly, I'll kind of focus on the head after I get those things working right. And a lot of that is just because the motion down here is just to dictate the motion up here, because the arms and the chest are counterbalancing to the hips and the feet. And then the head is dependent on that motion of the chest, so kind of working your way up is a good way to go. You know, I could just work on the legs here and focus on them and be happy with them. Like some people just take the arms out of the equation, like they'll just keep them up and only really look at the legs as they're animating to decide, you know, is that working for them or not. Also, take breaks between animating, because you'll sit here and you'll pick apart your stuff and maybe it looks fine, or maybe you think it looks fine, and you'll come back and realize like, oh no, this looks glitchy. I just, trained myself to see this wrong because I've been working on it so long. So, take time, step away from your work, come back, and it's really quite helpful for ensuring that you're doing good work. Alright, so I'm going to go about halfway between here and just start to pull the arms out some, so as they're going around the legs, they aren't clipping through them. And I guess here I need to come out. Same for the other arm. So, first thing I'm just kind of addressing is not clipping through the legs. That's not too bad. Actually, I need to do the same here as her hand comes back. That means we need to do the same here. And actually, I want to get a little bit of side to side in the hips here. So I'm going to look at whatever foot's planted and put the hips just slightly over that leg. It doesn't take a ton of motion. I'm just copying the frame from first to last. Okay. And see, I want to get a little bit of secondary swing in the arms. So I want to get a little bit of drag there in this arm. Which continues through. I'm just focusing on the form for right now. And do the same over on this side. Alright, I'll play this, see how I feel about that. Still a little bit robotic, but I think it's the hands at the end doing a lot of it. So I'm going to start posing those and see how that looks. So I'm going to get a little bit of drag on the hands here. I'm going to try not to do it on the axis, because otherwise it looks really robotic. I mean, the elbow has to be. So I'm not picking a particular one, I'm just going to kind of eyeball them into place. And I should be looking at this from more than one view as I do it to make sure. Yeah, that looks like it lines up. I'll have to adjust the fingers some here. Nice. Some drag, so we want the hand to stay forward. So we get kind of this pendulum swinging motion from the arms a little bit. I mean, your arms don't naturally just dangle and swing back and forth like that. You're swinging them. Part of it's counterbalanced to your walk, and some of it's like, so when your arm comes down, it has weight to it, so it's more likely to straighten out a little bit more here. And still dragging behind, so it goes back. Not too much. Alright, so again, I'm going to kill our animation for walking forward. And I'm going to turn off the NURBS curves just to see how this looks. Oh, and I'm seeing my double frame, so 29. It's not bad, a little bit jerky. So now we need to clean up some of that timing. So it's there. It looks like she's like flicking her wrist forward. So let's go and adjust that. So I think it's probably going to be the hold key or the original extremes that I have are the issue. She probably needs I need to fix this extreme too. Now let's loop. That's almost the opposite problem. Okay, I'm just going to adjust one hand at a time. Alright, backhand, it almost looks like something's jittering when it goes back. Yeah, it's too much right there. So lessen that up a little bit. See how that looks. I'm still getting some of that jitter in there. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So now I gotta figure what that jitter is. I'm gonna check out my graph curve, see if anything looks weird. Oh yeah, things look just a little bit weird. So let's smooth out these graph curves some so they're not those weird S curves in between. That might be where my jitter's happening. So it's more of a smooth motion in between every pose. Oh yeah, so here's the other thing is where this one starts and where this one ends. Um, we want to try to line those up as much as possible. So this is gonna be a little bit tricky, but this way that curve is going into that one rather than again doing that S curve there. I gotta imagine that this one is coming into that side. And actually, there is something we can do. I gotta remember where the heck it is. There is a repeat option. Ah, there we go. Let's see, curves post infinity cycle. Is that what I want? Let me turn this up to 300. Maybe I need to have them selected. Well, let me see if I can remember how to use this because it's been a while since I've actually turned it on. Yeah, it's working just only with what I have selected. So let's grab everything and actually, you know what? No, that's not what I want because I'll have that double frame. So it's just too much. It's hitching on its way back. I think that's it. So we're going back there, and it kind of goes forward. Is that the elbow? Might be the elbow. It's almost like frame 29 is more full. Like it starts to go forward again right there. So yeah, I think it's the elbow. Yeah, this is probably what's going on. Hmm. Yeah, so see what's going on? Frame 28 is going back. So 27 to 28 is going back. 28 to 29 is going back. Now it's starting to bend forward just a little bit right there. So maybe I need to bend this forward a little bit more there. See, I'm going to look at what's happening in my graph here. Yeah, I need to bring this down. So what it's doing is it's going in, out, just too much motion. I need to make sure it keeps going back that whole time. Frame 27 to 28 goes back. 28 to 29 goes back. 29 to 1. Nope, stutters. Okay, so I need to bring this down some. So I'm just holding shift and middle mouse dragging on this so that it goes straight up and down so I don't drag it off the keyframe. So I'm going to try something more like that and see how this looks. There we go, got rid of that jitter. Okay. And pause this. Hello. Hello. Alright, we are going to pause for intermission as I try to... Oh wait, is that... Okay, there we go. No, we're not pausing for anything. Although I'm going to scrub and try to... What is going on? Did my reference just break? Interesting. Okay, so this is going to be a perfect example of where we use Python animation import export. What is this? Pasted. Oh, it pasted in that rig. Can I undo that? I cannot. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was trying, like, I couldn't stop playing it, and that was weird. I got stuck in a loop, but I don't know. Weird things happen when you're recording sometimes. All right. Well, does this still hitch, or do I need to fix it again? No, that looks fine. Okay. Now this side definitely still not great. So I'm going to check the same thing with the graph editor. Really should have closed Spotify before starting this, so it stops grabbing my cursor every time I try to open the graph editor. Alright, do we have the same thing going on here? So forward, 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 forward. Nope. Yeah, I think we got something just a little bit wonky here. It's the same sort of deal. I'm going to try to bring this up more. Go the other way. Yeah, that's already better. Okay, so I think this is starting to look good. I feel like her upper body is too stiff. I need to do some more twisting to it. So start here. I'm going to copy this frame to the last frame, which is frame 30. And then have her twist the other way. Alright, I'm going to kind of chop off her head with the screen here and see how I feel about that. Alright, that looks a little bit more natural to me. Okay, so lastly, I'm just going to kind of address the head here. And let's try to stabilize this a little bit. So, nice thing is I could just kind of use the gimbal and my grid to kind of keep her head looking forward. Copy that frame. And do the same on 15. And trying to figure out if I need to... Nope, she seems level. Churn off the NURBS curse to see how I feel about that. So, yeah, there's a walk cycle. I mean, there's not a ton of character or personality to this, but this is how you start to do it. So there's little things I could tweak, and you could spend the rest of your life tweaking it. I mean, there's a saying that artists would never finish anything if it wasn't for deadlines. So, like, maybe I want to put some more in her fingers there if I wanted to. So, like, there is a little bit of sway in your fingers too as you're walking, and your hands are loose. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to make you guys watch me do secondary motion on fingers. It's kind of the same thing we did with the arms, just very subtle on the fingers. But that's how you do a walk cycle. So now a programmer can put this in the engine. Again, we tell him, hey, I animated this to walk 4 feet every 1 second, and he, or they'd be able to, program this character by default by that, and then you tweak it to whatever actually makes it fun to play. Or if you're doing film, so remember that post-infinity thing. So there's a couple options. One is you could use Python animation import export and paste in the frames and just paste them in over and over for every time you want it to loop. The other is you could start playing with that post-infinity thing, but it keeps going is the problem. And we'd also have to set a keyframe on 29 and delete all the keyframes on 30 so it didn't double up on a frame there. And we'd have to do that anyway if we're doing it with Python animation import export. Let me go ahead and actually do that, because then I'll actually use this thing and show you guys that are doing longer walk cycles how to do this. So let's see. I need to select everything, and I'll open up this. I'm going to go to the Export tab. We'll call this Walk Cycle, and I'll turn off my caps lock. And I want to make sure I'm exporting animation, not a pose, and telling it just timeline only. So actually I'm going to go, before I do this, I'm going to save this before something horrible happens. I probably should have saved this earlier. That's a really bad working habit, but I don't know, making demos, I don't care if I save this or not. Okay. So save that out. Have my walk cycle. I'm going to export that. Export it out my animation. And let's see, what am I going to do? I'm going to set a keyframe on 29 so that I actually have an end key for my loop. I'm going to put it 29. One, I'm just going to check it to make sure it still plays the same, because when I added that keyframe, it could have changed some of my graph curves. No, I'm still good with this. Okay. And again, I'm going to grab everything, animation import export, and I'm just going to name it the same thing, and it'll just write over the same file. Ask me if I want to write over it. Yes. And now I'll go to import, and let's see. Let's make her walk in three loops here. So 30 frames, 60, 90. It won't be quite 90. I think it'll be like 3 shy of 90. I'm going to go ahead and delete that keyframe. And select this for import. It has me automatically select that namespace. And hit import. Another walk cycle. Go to the next frame after. Import. There we go. And I know I had her walking roughly. Now this is a little bit tricky because now we've shaved a frame off this. I should have ideally probably been working up to frame 31. Oh well, next time. So let's see. We know we have her walking 4 units a frame. That's 3 walk cycles. So 4 times 3 would be 12. And have that set. And so if this is extra, once I have it right, I can then go to this keyframe and tell it stop. Oh, you know what? I've got this bottom ring selected, so I want to actually delete all these keyframes. So it just has one straight shot. So translate Z. Alright, that's a nice straight line again, so it's a constant speed. And let's see if this worked how I expected it to. So not bad. It's the start of something. I could, if I needed to, if she's talking or something like that, I could start to put hand gestures on top of this, or her saying stuff or looking around on top of that. It's a little hitchy. That's the cleanup stage, but that's the start of a walk cycle. After that, it's looking at your references and tweaking the little things. Kind of like I was doing with the arm, of like, okay, that's too much. After this, you'd really go in and finesse it. I mean, not after. Well, if you're doing rendered stuff, animation. At this point you would. If you're doing game loops, you'd go back to where I just had the one cycle and then really finesse this to work as a cycle. But that's how to do a walk cycle, how to start to block out the animation. We use Python animation import export to start to save out poses and animation, well, at least in this case animation, so we could loop it easy and easily paste in those frames over and over. And now that that's saved, I can go put this in any scene with this character. So Yeah, there you go, and I'll see you next lesson.